Listen up. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the podcast participants, and not to any participant's employer, organization, committee, or other group or individual. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. You know, for fun. So lighten up and enjoy. Stomping Jen.
Sawtooth Frank.
How you doing over there?
I'm okay. What do you keep looking at my knees?
Yeah, I was just noticing you have a very unusual posture as we're recording this. Your knees are tilted to the side and folded together.
Do you want me to change my seating arrangement?
It's reminding me of something, but I don't know what it is.
All right.
But good to see you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
Do you know who we're talking to?
I have an inkling.
All right,
Why don't you tell us?
I'll tell you.
Thank you.
We're talking to Greta and Paul Boudreau. They are community leaders and founding members of the Connecticut Tenants Union, which is the largest union within the Connecticut Tenants Union. Now, this is a subject near and dear to my heart, Jennifer. As you know, I am co-president of a union myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in this, actually.
Yeah.
You know, not like most of our guests where I could give a shit and I have to fake it.
All right.
Right? This, I have some skin in the game, as they say.
Sounds awesome.
Right? Are you ready to talk union stuff?
Oh, yes.
Okay. We're going to chant.
Absolutely.
We may even chant.
Oh, no.
Unionists love to chant.
Yes.
But we'll talk to Greta and Paul about what they're up to and a bunch of other stuff, okay?
Sounds awesome.
All right. Here we go. The Soft Serve Podcast. Creamy, delicious ideas without the creepy truck. Stomping
Well, no, you gotta chant
Jen.
it. See?
How do I chant to this music?
I don't know. You were just talking about chanting.
No, I can't do that. Come on. These are unrealistic demands you've put upon me, and I will not chant. I'm forming an anti-chanting union. Right now. Greta and Paul, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. I'm making a little bit of hay out of a very serious subject and important work that you're doing. So, as I mentioned in the beginning there, I am co-president of a union myself. So I was really excited when I found out that you two were doing this work. So I wanted just to start with maybe each of you just introducing yourselves to us and, tell us how you're doing. So we'll start with Greta. Please, go ahead.
Okay. My name's Greta, and how am I doing? Well, I'm doing pretty well right now, but we've been going through some stuff here at our complex, so Paul and I decided to start this union, and it's kind of blowing up into this huge, it's going to be national soon, I think, with some other properties. So we're just kind of just sitting here every day, like our minds are blown, like on a daily basis, just seeing how far we've come from the beginning, which was like less than a year ago. So
that's amazing. Thanks, Greta. Paul, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself. How you doing?
Well, I'm a mechanic. We pretty much just got involved in this, honestly, because my car got towed. That was the catalyst for all this. And at some point, probably within a week's time of that, Greta turned to me and said, "Well, we'll just have to change the law." And I said, "Okay, well then we'll do that." And here we are. We're
about to have an ordinance passed in our town for tenant rights.
That's awesome.
So in the next month, So yeah, I mean it's insane.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah,
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say there's probably not a week goes by that we don't look at each other and go, what did we just get ourselves into here? Because it's just so much bigger than us at this point that it's a runaway train. It's pretty cool to be on it, though.
Yeah, and that's part of union work, right? Is joining into a larger movement and trying to find your place in that, right? And trying to achieve the goals of that movement. It's one of the things I love about doing union work myself. And I was honestly surprised, and I don't know why, to learn that there was such a thing as a tenants union. So I'm wondering if one or both of you could just tell us a little bit about what a tenants union is, because I think some people listening to this might not even know such a thing exists or what it is.
Greta, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. It's basically just a collective of tenants. I mean, ours started with 3 people, and we were officially a union. We just said we're a union, so we were one. The goal is to get the towns and the fair rent commissions to see us as a union as well and to acknowledge us as a union. But basically, it's just about collective action, just like, workers' unions. One person really can't get a lot done, but 10 people can get a lot more done. And, it kind of just spreads from there. And, we started as a union at our complex, and in the past, 2 weeks, we started adding people from other complexes in Hamden. So we're now, as of today or yesterday, we're the Hamden Citywide Union, I think, something like that. We haven't really named it yet. But yeah, I mean, it's all about just coming together. And it is, the part that I really love about it is just, we've become a community. I've never lived in a community where I've known my neighbors and stuff like that. And here, we help with each other's kids. We if someone, has no money at the end of the month, we buy a milk. I mean, it's really pretty amazing, that part of it that you just get out of it. You're not really going into it for that, but it's really one of the best parts of it. Mm-hmm. I probably missed a bunch of stuff there. So,
sure. Paul, is there anything you wanted to fill in there?
I think one of the biggest things in this is just kind of a recent realization, is that as a tenants union, we tend to help each other find our voices. And it's an amazing thing to watch people find their voice. And that's what's been fueling me for the last few months, at least, that just watching people who've never had a voice finally have a voice. And just like labor, one of the things we're exploring now is working with labor unions, because tenants are workers. Tenants are workers who go home, and then if you don't get your money taken at work, it gets taken at home. And it shouldn't get taken anywhere, because people work hard and they deserve to have peace in their homes.
Yeah, I love that. And I love one of the things that Greta was talking about, which is the community finding and building aspect of this union work, right? I mean, that's a foundational element of it. And I love hearing that this work has connected you with the people in the community you live around. Was that a surprising development for you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was the first thing you have to do is canvass, go to your neighbors' houses and knock on the doors. And it's kind of not something that I would naturally do. But it's, when you live in a place like this where, everybody has issues with the way it's run, you say, oh, hey, I'm your neighbor. And they're like, oh, hey, and everybody has a story to tell. And it's also this interesting to hear everybody's kind of why they're here, and I've been able to, kind of get to know people, that I wouldn't necessarily know otherwise. And it's like, I don't know, for me, it's been great. Like, we've made like really good friends. The kids all run up to us and hug us and call our names out. It's like, it's really nice. It's like we had a Halloween thing for the kids. So it's really like a neighborhood. And where before we were always like, oh, we got to get the hell out of this place. Like, let's keep stuff in boxes. We're not staying here. It's been 6 years. So we decided this year, well, let's try to make it like a little nicer, I guess, because we're probably going to stay for a little bit until this thing rides itself out. And so now we're at this point kind of like where we don't want to leave, because it's like, it's kind of like a war in a way. I mean, they harassed us and, tortured us. And for us, when you're messing with our families, with our children, and stuff like that, it's serious to us. So,
yeah, thanks. Paul mentioned, the towing of the car is one kind of inciting reason to start thinking about forming a tenants unit. Like, what kind of other stuff is happening in the place you live that requires some kind of representation, from a union? If you could talk to us a little bit more about the types of problems that the community that you're living in is facing, and why we need this union.
I think, if I could say, the towing really is what started bringing us all together. It was kind of out in the open, and it was just, it's one of those things you hear all the time. Everybody's, $300 to $600 away from complete financial ruin at this point. And a lot of people in this place, including myself, were in that position, especially at the end of COVID. Like, we were still technically in quarantine at that point. And what we found is that this landlord likes to use towing as a way of intimidating everybody into compliance, basically, not complaining, not questioning. And they came in full force. They towed, it must have been about 40 cars in a day, with people literally outside pleading for their cars. Towed them to a place that was about 45 minutes away, that only takes cash, only takes exact change, basically is open when they feel like it, answers the phone when they feel like it. It's a boiler room kind of con job place, covered in Trump signs, literally covered in Trump signs. It was just the worst spectacle. And the management literally refused to even tell people where their cars had been taken to, and immediately instituted a policy of a $75 fine for complaining to the management about the towing.
What? That's fucking bullshit.
They never have done it, though. They've never done it. It's just their stupid sign. Like, okay, what are you going to do? But other than that, like, there's just systemic problems. I mean, they treat people like, we've done something wrong just because we live here. There's a big bias against renters, and there's like things like mold, just everywhere in this place. Their maintenance is terrible. I mean, there's just nothing that they do well here. They just kind of patchwork maintenance, if they ever do it at all. We've had mold in our basement for years. And like, literally, we're finally getting someone to listen to, but literally the mayor has to be involved. The town council has to be involved. We have to go to the board of the health department. It's like a huge endeavor just to get these people to do their job. So, and I think that you have to add in there that there was a sense of hopelessness that everybody felt here. So to find other people who are kind of having the same struggles you're having, even if you don't know that you're going to win, at least you're in it together, kind of, and you're like, okay, you know?
Yeah.
What?
The toll. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the toll this takes on your mental health after a while. It's really an endurance game. And it's almost impossible to do it by yourself is what it comes down to. And, you know, all the people we talked to, a lot of them had been through the same thing. They had called their you know, the mayor's office, the city council, the health department, the state, and everybody else you could think of, and nobody will call you back. And it's just like the union thing. It's just like nobody will listen to the individual. You know, united we stand, divided we beg, and we were all tired of begging.
Yeah, and I was reflecting on the using of towing like as a strategy, like to hurt people, and I was thinking of my own experience, like having my car towed once. I was in Boston, like parked in a renter's area in downtown Boston, and I came out, my car was gone. I had to have my friend drive me like 20 miles to this like seaport parking lot at midnight. Like there was like nobody there. It was like basically like in this junkyard, like you said, Paul, I had to pay them in cash. Like, so we had to leave the junkyard, go get cash, go back, and
They don't make it easy.
They don't make it easy. And I'm just thinking, like, for most of us, like, you know, we need our cars to work. And if you take away somebody's car and don't make it easy for them to get their car, then you're impacting their ability to generate, you know, any income and then pay their rent. And then if somebody gets behind on their rent, then the landlord has another reason to potentially, you know, hold something against them or try to have somebody removed. It's just, I can see how something so seemingly small could have huge like ripple effects and ramifications on people. And it's just awful.
I mean, these guys were like trolling the lots, like circling. Like we felt crazy. Literally, they do it to like make you crazy so that you're like, you know, dealing with that instead of dealing with the fact that they can't fix anything the right way. You know, so it is a strategy. It's definitely a strategy to kind of like, you know, harass people basically and get more money. You know, I'm convinced that they're getting something else out of it as well. But I mean, maybe not. Maybe they're just assholes.
Yeah. So when you started going around and talking to other neighbors and members of the community, what was that like, and what was the reaction like from people? Did they seem eager? Were they reticent? Somewhere in between? Talk to us a little bit about, as leaders, like how you pull people into this movement of of building something to help represent them.
You want to go? Or?
You can go.
Did you even hear the question? You look like your eyes are about to close all the way. You okay over there?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I don't even remember what the question was. Aren't we the greatest guests that you've ever had on this podcast ever?
It's about the canvassing.
Yeah, I'm really curious about how people responded to the canvassing and what that was like pulling people in to the movement.
I mean, literally everybody here is so sick of this place that someone's coming to your door and asking you, how is it here? It's like everyone loves to complain, you know? So the first time you meet everybody, you hear the story about like why they're pissed off that they have to be here and give money to these fuckers, you know? And then it's like, you know, we would sign people up, get their phone. I mean, it was crazy, and it's been crazy since the beginning. Like, we haven't even been able to catch up, kind of. But as far as pulling people in, like, it's a little tough sometimes. I don't know if it's the same. I mean, you're getting paid in a union where you're like a workers' union, as I guess, as a leader or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably.
But
I was gonna say this is probably a detail you want. In my union, like, we elect not to take any kind of payment. You know, just this current board of leaders that I'm part of, we refuse any kind of payment, and there's like lots of reasons for that. But
so I guess maybe that it might be a little difficult to do that. I don't know for you guys, but you have to kind of. There's a whole philosophy about like bumping people up and kind of, it's almost like a pyramid scheme, but it's not. It's like they're using it for good, and there's no money exchange or anything like that. But basically, like, you're just trying to figure out who knows a lot of people, who, is outgoing, who's like really pissed off and like ready to do something, and then you just kind of like see, well, we're doing this thing. Can you come with us and hand out these flyers? And so, you're kind of like seeing, like, is the person really going to do stuff? And, you just keep doing it like that. And we've gotten like a couple of really good leaders out of that. But now we're kind of like Paul and I are trying to like level up a little bit. Like we want to go with the Hamden Union. Now we want to kind of like start getting that bigger. And so we need to kind of train people to do what we're doing, which is like running everything basically. So that's difficult to replace ourselves, but I'm sure we could do it.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do as a leader, is to try to figure out the best way to delegate things and step back, right? And so you can have a bigger picture view of the problem solving and the strategy that needs to happen. That's really challenging. But it sounds like you at least know you have to do that as you're building this, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I don't feel like we have any choice, other than to like kind of move forward and keep plowing ahead at this point. So it's like whatever we have to do, we're willing to do. And now that we're having success at the Fair Rent Commission, people are coming in like without us even asking. So they're like joining our MailChimp and all that stuff. I don't know, is MailChimp like an old thing?
No, we use it actually in my union. We use it to communicate to our members because we don't want it.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, even though Massachusetts just passed this law 3-4 years ago now, saying we can use the employer's email system, we choose not to, like for lots of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we use MailChimp for sure. Yep. So that's still a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if I was like aging myself.
No. You mentioned some wins that your union has helped get in terms of, I think, rent. We're recording this at the beginning of November, and as I was doing some of my research, I think I saw like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, like there was some decision made about canceling rent increases. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about those wins?
Sure. You want me to talk, Paul?
Yeah, I think I'm going to Rent Commission is your thing, definitely.
Yeah, the Fair Rent Commission in Hamden, Connecticut hadn't been running really since 2018. They had not had a hearing. And basically, like, when we were looking for a place to complain to, like, nobody told us to go to the Fair Rent Commission. We asked everybody in the town. So it's kind of like not even a real thing at that point. But we did, along with the mayor and, some of the town councils, got them up and running. And we started having hearings in September. I think we've had like 6 total, or 4 or 5, something like that.
4,
anyway, all but one, they either kept the rent what it was before the raise, or they lowered it below that for a year. So, they were forced to sign leases with those tenants for less money than they wanted. So we took money out of the landlord's pocket. And, honestly, any way we can do that, it's it's a victory to just not let them, because they just want to bleed you dry for like every penny. So,
are these landlords like corporations? Are they people? Like, are they like some guy or person who lives, in a house in what's a rich county in Connecticut? I don't know, but like
Fairfield.
Yeah,
Fairfield County,
are they like like ultra wealthy people who live somewhere and just own these things, or are they run by like big companies?
Well, our landlord. Oops, sorry. I was going to say our. Oh, all right, you go.
It's like corporate investors.
Mm-hmm.
Like these people literally have. It makes me sick to my stomach. I just learned about this. They have these it's sickening. They have these Facebook pages where they'll take a picture of like a complex, and it's usually like ours is like kind of like not terrible. I mean, it's not the best place, not the worst place, but they'll take a picture of it and they'll be like asking people to invest to buy it, and they're literally telling people we will give you an 18% return. But what that means is taking like the last bit of money that the people who live here have. They just like suck it dry. They get their money and then they sell it, or they do. I don't even know what they do, but it's gross. Like it just makes me sick. So I don't know. It's just, and then they don't fix it up because they just want to resell it within 3 to 7 years. This is all in the plan. It's 3 to 7 years. And, they just assume that the land is going to go up. So they just sell, they're going to make money. I don't know.
It sounds like America.
Well, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's so what I think I'm hearing, it sounds like is, these groups of investors buy these places. They come in, and I'm assuming that then because they are the new owners, they can jack up the rents or something, or think they can, right? Or they think they can do that, and that's part of their plan, and then sell it off to somebody, and eventually like drive everybody out, and hopefully the land will be worth something, and they could sell it to a mall or something. Is that like the 50-year plan?
A mall?
I don't know.
I don't know about that. I think these places are going to fall into themselves at some point. You can't just leave things forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is like it's like somebody figured this out. I don't know how many years ago, and then they're just like plowing themselves through every complex they can find, and just leaving in their path the debris of people's lives. And I'm not like, that's not like I'm saying it like in a funny way, but it's like it's true. It's like this is like kids, families, single moms. There's a woman here who has Parkinson's disease. When she came to our Halloween thing, she couldn't communicate very well. They're trying to raise this woman's rent $350 a month.
Oh my God!
These people have no conscience, none.
Yeah, I don't think you're being hyperbolic at all. Like, I think you're. Yeah. I think it is. I think it is a tragedy, and it's disgusting, like you said, to do this to people as part of a investment strategy, right? These are people's homes, right, that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's an investment strategy. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's so maddening. But what we've seen, right, is when people organize, right, and when people form a union, a tenants union in this case, we can fight back against some of these injustices that are being inflicted upon people. I wanted to ask, so who can join a tenants union? Do you have to live in one of these complexes where that you're trying to represent, or can anybody join? Like, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I think mostly anybody can. Like, I mean, if you, like we said, there were 3 of us in the beginning, and we said we were the tenant union. And anyone can organize like that. Anywhere some people are collectively organizing and collectively bargaining, it's a union, as far as I'm concerned. And all you need be is a tenant, really. Like Greta had said earlier, we're branching out to the rest of the city now, and we have people who are contacting us from other complexes. We don't think it's right to exclude them because because they're like 50 feet away from our complex, literally. So, like that's how it works. It just keeps expanding. I mean, someday I want it to see it like be a normal fit part of society that, if you live in an apartment complex, that you have a tenant union. There's, one of the things these corporations and these LLCs too are buying up even like multifamily homes, like 2 and 3 family homes. And they're doing the same things there. And the people in those places have even less rights than places with multi apartment units, because they're almost considered single family homes in a lot of ways. And they have almost no one to go to, which is why we need at least citywide like unions, if not statewide.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said, that like a vision for this, right, is that is a normal thing in society. Like if you're renting a place, or that you get to be part of a tenants union that can represent your interests. I've sort of been feeling, at least the last year or so, renewed interest in labor and unions across the country. I mean, we've seen that in a number of places, from Amazon to Trader Joe's, other places. So I'd love to see more people be able to find support in the inequities they're facing in their housing. Because we all know, we don't have to look far. Like, housing is a fucking shit show all across this country. Mm-hmm. It's awful. So I love this. Now, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it. So I imagine people might be afraid of getting involved, right, in a union or doing union work, right? They're afraid that it's going to put the spotlight on them, that the landlords might turn the eye of Sauron upon them if they start getting involved. Talk to us a little bit about just kind of the general protections that people have as being part of a union when it comes to advocating for themselves.
The state of Connecticut has a statute that is supposed to protect tenants. One of the things about joining a union is that you are protected for 6 months after you join the union. They can't really do anything to you to retaliate. That only gets you so far. So, and then if you complain to any like state or town agency, or you make a fair rent commission complaint, it's the same thing. And it's, we have put in maybe 30 fair rent commission complaints. We have 450 units. And 399 are total. So, we haven't put in that many, but, where was I going with that? Cut that
Retaliation. Retaliation.
Oh yeah. What are the protections? That's, when you have like 25, 30 people, you're going to blend in there. They're not going to pick specifically on you. Of course, Paul and I were the first ones. So, they don't like us. They especially don't like me, and that's okay with me.
It took me some getting used to in my own union leadership work, is the fact that people dislike me intensely. You feel the chilling effect when you join a Zoom or walk into a room. It's just, oh, here comes that crazy guy again.
That's what they say about me too. I'm the crazy old lady.
Yeah, they're gonna they're going to yell at me and tell me all the things I'm doing wrong and, make demands upon me. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do to you.
That's right.
Stop being a shit, and I won't do those things. So
don't make me do it. You're making me do it. This hurts me more than it hurts you, trust me.
I haven't used that one yet.
Yeah, you should just introduce yourself that way next time.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good. Were you nervous or worried when you were first taking on these leadership roles in starting the Connecticut Tenants Union?
Yeah,
Well,
why don't we hear? Why don't we hear from Paul? Go ahead, Paul.
I kind of expected a lot. I expected retaliation. I tried to start a union at a shop once and realized pretty quickly like how badly that can go without proper planning and proper organizers. So I kind of expected what was going to happen. I knew there'd be retaliation, but I was just pissed off. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, after we had done just the tiniest bit of canvassing, we realized how many cool people lived at this place. And really, it kind of showed us the bigger picture that, everywhere that, they're just people where we're all just trying to, get by in life at this point, and we're under attack. It's not an attack on the poor anymore. It's an attack on everyone that's not rich. And that's, if we don't fight back and maybe put our own asses on the line a little bit, it's never going to change. And, Greta and I had a conversation about it before, an official conversation. Is this what we're doing? We understand what we're getting ourselves into a little bit here. And, are we doing this, and are we willing to make the commitment to follow through? And we both agreed, this is what we wanted to do, that this is the commitment we wanted to make so that, the world would be a little bit better for our kids.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious what advice you might have for people who are listening to this, right? Maybe they're thinking about starting their own tenants union, right? Because people outside of our geographic area, Massachusetts and Connecticut, listen to this. So, what advice do you have for people who are feeling like they want to start their own tenants union, or they want to join one? And do you have any advice you could give those people?
I would say just talk to your neighbors. Just say, how long have you lived here? Kind of get to know each other, and, what kinds of things are you facing? This is what I'm facing. And, once you get a bunch of people together, then you can kind of try to make the next step. But the first thing that we always have to ask people to do is to get some people together, because there's just not enough time to help everybody. And then, you can have an action. Decide what you want to do. There's so many ways of going about it. I feel like we just it was a first for a lot of people in this area to work on this, and get this large union at a complex. So I don't know. It's a little different, but.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was looking on the Connecticut Tenants Union website a little earlier this week when I was preparing for our conversation. And Greta, they say exactly what you said, right? The process is sort of, the first thing is start meeting, right? Get your neighbors together, right? Get in the same room, share experiences, talk about what your goals are going to be, right? So is it, let's stop this nefarious towing that's happening, right? This targeted and unfair towing. Is it, let's remediate the mold in, building 3? So come up with goals, right? But you got to meet with people. You got to get people together in a room, and it's starting to form that community. And then out of that, sort of the next step is to make demands, right? After you know what your after you've got a sense of what the community's goals are for this work, make demands, and then send them off to the landlord, right?
Or you can have an action. That's what we had an action where people, march to the landlord or the management office. That's what these landlords do. They have management companies as well. That's a whole other thing. But so we went to the management office, and I wasn't there for specific reasons, but they all went in and had a list of demands for management. And that's we had press there, and that was kind of like our coming out party, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's where we were joking, Stomping Jen, at the beginning here about like chanting and, creating noise and excitement and energy. But, I've been part of groups that have, marched on the administration building, we go in there chanting, we have our list of demands, and, we go into the chancellor's office and we deliver it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about being seen, right? Collectively. It's about, expressing the power of togetherness that way.
Yeah.
And Paul, earlier you mentioned this idea about collective bargaining, which is another thing that unions do. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about what that means, and in the context of the tenants union, what that might look like?
Well, I found unexpectedly one of the biggest strengths of a tenant union is its ability to vote people out or in. And one of the advantages of having a union that's the largest one is that, 250, 300 voters could make a huge difference in a municipal election. When you're talking about mayors and city councils, like you can literally vote somebody in and out with just that number of people on an off-year election. And making people aware of that has really brought us a long way. City council members, the mayor, we had an action at one point at City Hall that just by calling the action, even before we had it, we were contacted by the mayor's office for a meeting before the action even happened. And that's where our collective bargaining has been coming in, is really working with the local government to make stronger tenant laws that'll protect us, in the future, in the years to come. I mean, a lot of these laws haven't changed since the 60s. I know ours go back to 69, I think.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And that,
it also, like, it makes it easier, like, if there's all these like affordable housing tax credits and these investors and these corporations can come in, use those tax credits to build these complexes and then basically abandon them or do like this kind of shady business.
They also do like weird depreciation stuff, which is like, oh, thanks for like letting my home go to shit so you can like have a tax write-off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Paul, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that before, right? Is the voting block that tenants and tenants unions might represent, and the leverage that can represent on politicians. And it sounds like what I'm hearing is that, the mayor and other political officials have at least been responsive, like they've at least heard you and they're paying attention to what you're doing.
I think for the most part they support us too, right, Paul?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think like the response has been shocking at times, where we had gotten a promise from our city council member, Sarah Gallagher, to just be in touch with us and let us know what was going on with basically the revival of our Fair Rent Commission, and just didn't respond. And so we held an action at the next city council member where we called them all out until basically they shut off our mics. but it got the point across. Like it really got the point across. And the next day stuff started happening. So it really is but this person's been on board 100% since that day. And really has been like almost leading the charge at this point. So you never know who your allies are going to be. It's funny that somebody told me a while back when I got into this, another Connecticut Tenant Union member actually, who they were very helpful with us to get this going and sending other people out to canvass with us in the beginning. But they were saying like, nobody's your friend forever and nobody's your enemy forever. Like right now is what counts in politics. And, right now we've made some amazing allies, and, you never know when that's going to turn around on you. But right now we're running with it.
That's a good point. Does that mean to the extent you can, do you try, at least when it comes to dealing with political officials or other people, you try not to get too personal, like in the sense of putting forward your platform and your demands, because maybe like later this person is going to be somebody who might be a potential ally, or at least somebody who can help move something forward. Like I often struggle with this, right? Like I often find myself holding my tongue, like, because if I call somebody, a flaming scumbag, right, in a meeting, which I'm allowed to do technically, I'm protected, but is that in my best interests?
Probably not.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, often I find this work,
you have to balance a line,
but it arouses so much passion. Like I sometimes find myself like angry with the people I'm negotiating with or talking to. And I'm curious, is that something you struggle with too? It's like, you're thinking about like, okay, I want to get this thing done, so I've got to be smart about how I do this, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something that comes naturally for me at all. To not be like, just give like yelling at somebody and like, I want this, do this. Why aren't you doing it? But, I'm learning kind of to like, there's time for that. And there's a time for like just being quiet. There's a time, like, you have to be more strategic, I think. Mm-hmm. That at least than I naturally am, because I'm not strategic like in my life. Like I'm not trying to like win anything or like get over on someone. But in these cases, you have to be strategic, and that, sometimes it means like if it's somebody like maybe a town council member who promised you something and isn't doing it, like there are other town council members, so you don't have to like, be like, oh, la, la, la. You can actually be like, I'm pissed off. You didn't do this freaking thing. We're suffering here. We need help. So it's like the level of shit that people here are putting up with, like, I don't care. Sometimes if someone doesn't like me, like, oh, well, like come here and live here, and then we can talk, so.
Yeah. And it's the balance too of like, stating the problem for what it is too, right? And like you were saying, Greta, like not sugarcoating it either, because you got to go in there and say like, there's mold in the basement, right? Like we need to fix this because people's health could be at risk, and it's a balance between, I guess, being clear and firm and trying to get something done. I don't know. It's something I struggle with all the time. I don't know.
I think it depends who you're dealing with. Yeah. We're pretty lucky with our town government. It's pretty progressive, to be honest. There's some, Democratic socialists, and I think there's like two or three Republicans out of I don't know how many people, but they don't. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, we're just lucky because it's kind of like the timing is all right. Like there's so much momentum behind this just everywhere. Like everybody knows it's a problem. Everybody, a lot more people are sympathetic to renters now than they used to be. So everything's going the way it should go. And, we're hoping that, next year in the state, we're actually going to get some really good state laws passed as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit earlier that you've done some actions. I'm just curious if you can share with us what some of those actions were that you did to kind of get attention and move forward some of your demands.
Well, we've done a bunch of press, so some of it isn't necessarily actions, but we've done, we just we had a really long article in the Yale Daily News magazine, this past month. It was great, actually. It was all about tenant union, chemistry in this area, because New Haven's also doing all the same stuff. But the actions, let's see, the first one was the one that we did in front of the office. And, with actions, we also always try to press as much press as possible. And we usually do have press. We have people who are very sympathetic to the cause, so they'll always cover us. Were you going to say something, Paul?
Yeah, I was going to say, actions aren't always these big organized things either. Right now we're working on something down in Georgia, 1,000-unit complex down there that our landlord bought. And the Atlantic Journal-Constitution contacted us and wanted to basically know who the hell Harry Horowitz was and what the hell's his problem. They hadn't seen the likes of this yet, and we're working towards maybe even getting them organized. But at the very least, we want the landlord to see our name in a newspaper in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And know that we're reaching out. We're not just going away. That this is not an issue that you can just bully people and they're going to go away, because we just don't. We're not smart enough to go away. That's our problem.
That's amazing. And
For yourself.
and maybe a landlord, will think twice before going to a completely different area of the country and trying the same bullshit that they're up to somewhere else. I mean, I think that's really smart and amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's got a place in Alabama too, which is the next place after Georgia. But I just think about all the people that they're doing this. Oh, sorry. I just think about the people they're doing this same stuff to, and it's all I can think of, the reason they do this to these people and us, the people we live with, is because nobody has resources, and they know that. And it's really sad that, you need laws to keep people from just being complete pieces of shit, basically, It's not a handful.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So what have been some of the challenges that you two have faced in doing this work?
Do you think there's been anything other than interpersonal issues?
There's the 3 notices to quit. Those that's a problem.
What's a notice to quit?
It's like an eviction. It's what you get right before an eviction. They've tried to evict us several times now because we're literally it's for being a serious nuisance.
Yeah.
Actually, Greta was cited for being a serious nuisance, and I was cited for letting her be a serious nuisance.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Control your woman.
Oh, you should make that into You should make that into a T-shirt.
Yes.
I'm a serious nuisance?
Yes.
Yes.
I like that.
And I can have the one with the arrow that says I let her.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got mad because I blocked the tow truck once and told him to go fuck himself and then I said you're going down because I knew I know we're gonna ruin him, and then he took that a completely different way than I meant it and wrote me a really weird email. But anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've always pictured her like Yeltsin standing on the front of the tank yelling at the operator.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the fragility of the person who received that message that they were going down. That's funny. That's hilarious. What have been? I think I know the answer. I think you've said this a couple of times. But what have been some of the joys of doing this work for you? Things that maybe you weren't anticipating, or what keeps you going here?
I feel like our lives are so much fuller.
Yeah.
Like we get invited down to our neighbor's house for food, for a meal with her and her family, or we get invited to have birthday cake with someone, or someone's kids drop by, like in the middle, like yesterday, they like twice, right?
Yeah.
Someone's kids dropped by, they wanted to see our kitten. It's like a real like neighborhood, like, when we were kids, kind of. But even more so, because there's a lot of people here. So it's kind of like, it's really great. Like, there's kids running around and, like, we all know each other. We all, watch out for each other's kids. We all, if something's going on, we'll call the police if we need to. But, that's sparingly. And, we understand what that means and everything like that. I don't know. What about you, Paul?
I don't know. I think all that plus, the occasional, call you get where somebody's just like thanking you for helping them. Even with the smallest thing, like it really does like just fill you back up. Like you don't need a whole lot of those to keep you going. Like you really don't. And
right.
when you see change happening, and whether like people know you did, like I know, like hopefully. My goal would be to make so much change nobody knows who the hell I am, and that
I don't want
anything to do with
any
me.
of that. No, I don't want any of that at all.
Yeah.
At all.
I love that. What have you learned about yourselves in doing this? Have you discovered something new about yourself? Did you reinforce something you already knew about yourself in doing this work? What have you learned?
You want to go?
Sure. Well, to be honest, I have huge social anxiety, so that made canvassing very interesting at first. Got through that, then public speaking, Zoom meetings, running meetings, doing stuff like this. Like all this stuff is like all out of my wheelhouse, every single bit of it. And what I've learned about myself is that like I can do this stuff, and that's what I tell everybody else. Like if I can do this stuff, you can do this stuff. Like I used to like, do the Ferris Bueller, like I'm not going, I'm going, I'm not going, I'm going. Like every time I went canvassing, because I was so nervous just to talk to people. And the second, like that first door would open and somebody would start like pouring their heart out, like all that, like I had no anxiety anymore, and I couldn't wait to get to the next door after that one was done.
Yeah.
And that's really what I got out of it was that, I learned that I can do a lot more than I think. That I learned that like one or two people can literally make a big difference in a lot of people's lives. And I learned that, sometimes you got to put your ego aside so that you can get stuff done.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Greta?
Well, for me also, I think for the most part, it's been a lot of interpersonal stuff that I didn't expect, but, there's certain people that I've watched who kind of, like there's this one tenant leader. Everyone's going to know who I'm talking about if anyone ever listens to this. If anyone we know listens, not anybody ever, because I'm sure lots of people listen to this. But yeah, I mean, watching this woman has been really amazing. Like she's had a very, very, very hard life. Like probably the worst of anybody I know. And she, started doing the union stuff. She started canvassing. It's transformed her. It's really amazing. She didn't have the greatest, self-esteem just because of things she's been through. And like, just watching her, like, realizing
Awesome.
herself that she is so smart, so capable, like, really making a difference, and it's like, it's just amazing to see. It's she's going to go to school in January. She wants to become a drug and alcohol counselor, and she's, like, really doing well in her life. Like, I mean, she's moving forward. And this is somebody who 5 years ago, I would have been like, oh no, like, that's sad, but it's like, to see someone who's, like, clawed their way through life, and now to be able to watch them at that moment in their life when they're kind of, like, finally, like, getting something that they need in life, and being able to do something and make a difference. It's like, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, you're giving me goosebumps, Greta, and
yeah,
it's one of the things I love about this union work, is finding people who didn't know they had the capacity to do stuff and be leaders and move the needle on this or that, right? Like, it is one of the things that keeps me going, and it's like one of the things I focus on a lot is, like, finding who's gonna succeed me in this, right? Like, who's gonna finding the next leader. You both were talking about this kind of at the beginning, kind of like eventually you'd like to be able to fade into the background and have other people, be at the forefront. And, like, I totally get that, but I love what you were saying, because it is one of the biggest joys for me in this work, is, like, just seeing somebody who had no idea they had the capacity to be a leader, like, just step up into it and do awesome stuff. It's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Before we go on to our last two questions with you two, was there anything else you wanted to talk with us about that we may have missed or didn't get to?
I mean, if anyone's in Connecticut and you want to be in a tenant union, you can contact CTTU or, Saramonte. Just look up Saramonte Tenant Union. Find us. We'll hook you up.
And I will have the link to the Connecticut Tenants Union in our show notes, okay, listeners? Cool. So if you want to go check out that website and potentially even join, you might be able to join the union. Do that, okay? Paul, anything you wanted to make sure we talked about before we move on to our last two questions?
Just that if you're thinking of doing, like, even if it's not a tenant union, if you really want to do something, if you really want to see change in something, just start doing it. Find a way to do it, research it, find a role that you can play, because it's just, even though it's a lot of work, it's just like, I feel so much fuller. I feel so much like I'm going in a direction finally, as opposed to just going to work every single day and coming home and watching television. So it's worth it to at least do a partial commitment to a life of mission, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the, I don't know, I think we all, maybe we all don't know this, but, like, at the end of the day, I think we all want to belong, right, to something and have a tribe and, like, a community, right? And, like, these fucking lives we live now are so isolating, right? Like, even though we have the stupid Facebook, I'm holding up my phone now, and all of these things, like, they're still isolating. Like, you're still sitting there kind of alone at the end of the day. And, like, nothing beats, like, knowing there are actual, like, flesh and blood people that are, like, have your back, right? And that you're all working towards something. It's that, like, do you know what I mean?
I do.
Okay. Because sometimes I feel like I'm just
That's what I feel like too.
Sometimes I feel like I'm just pontificating, but, like, I really believe, like, that's what this work speaks to, is that, like, whatever that is in us that wants that and needs that, and I love it. So thank you two for doing this work. I'm blown away and impressed and grateful for you two for doing it. I want to say that.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and we're just going to talk a little bit about ourselves. These are fun.
I love talking about myself.
These are fun questions. Me too. Me too. It's why I have a podcast. So, what do you like to do for fun? We'll start with you, Greta. What outside of union work, what brings you joy?
Fun.
Yeah.
The look on your face.
What's fun? I have depression. I like to do a cheer. Give me a D. Give me an E. Give me a P. I went through the whole thing. So depression. For fun, I mean, I always like being around kids. I mean, my little nephew or like my friend's kids or whatever. Mm-hmm. I like to smoke weed. Not when I'm around the kids. A lot of weed.
Has Connecticut legalized yet?
Yeah, I have a medical card.
Okay, because up here in Massachusetts, I mean, there's now a dispensary on every corner. It's great. I mean,
it's weird. Like Connecticut's like kind of, they're like, oh, we'll do it, but then you can't really get high or anything. Like you have to get low THC. It's like you could get like 100 proof vodka or whatever.
Yeah.
What's 100 proof? Yeah. 50%? I don't know. I don't drink, but.
Yes, it's 50%. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. So, you're.
I just said I like to hang out with kids and I like to smoke weed. How fucking sad am I?
I don't.
What do I like? I like to color. I don't know.
Oh, really? Like coloring books?
Yeah, I love coloring.
Oh.
Not with crayons, with pens. I like colored pens.
Do you have actual
pens?
Do you have actual coloring books that you like? Oh, that's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah, I like to color. What else do I like to do, Paul? I like to hang out with Paul.
Okay.
Yeah, we like to be social. Like really my favorite thing is just to be able to hang out with like-minded people that when I don't have to organize for a few, for an evening or something, whether it's a backyard party or a picnic or something. But
that's fun.
It's really nice to just be around my people. Finally, I mean, one of the biggest things I think I got out of this is, I'm 56 years old and I've been thinking like this for a long time. I mean, one of the things that, I used to tell Greta when we got together, I was like, revolution's the only way it's going to change. And, it took her a little while to come around, but she did. And
I wasn't that far. Don't act like you,
she wasn't that far away. She wasn't. But, to finally find people who didn't look at me like I was insane every time I opened my mouth and were like, yeah, and actually were a little more over the top than me. That's my fun right there.
That's awesome.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I sound like a lunatic who only likes children and weed, and you're like, oh.
I don't. If it's any consolation at all, I don't think you sound like a lunatic. I think those are perfectly acceptable things to find joy in.
Oh, my kitty cats too.
Oh yeah, the cats are amazing. They're like endless entertainment.
How many cats do you have?
Don't tell the landlord because we get charged per cat per month.
Oh, you don't have to answer. So you have the right amount of cats.
Perfect.
Yes, but I'm going to call them. I'm going to tell them one died because I want to get $30 a month back. Is that bad?
They really charge you by the number of animals you have in your
place?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I paid $3,000. All right, we're doing personal stuff. We're not talking about those douchebags anymore.
Yeah, but it's not even like
you have one, you may as well have 5.
Yeah, it's not even like 2 cats do double the amount of wear and tear that one cat does. It doesn't work that way.
Hey, if they could get you to pay for kids, they would fucking do it. So, they're just horrible.
Scoundrels.
Like they're truly cartoon villains is what they are. I mean, they look like cartoon villains. They act like cartoon villains. I don't even like it. It's hard for me sometimes to grasp that these are real people doing these real things because, you think who would do this? Like, who would target an elderly person and try to like double their rent or some crazy stuff like that. Or like one of our members, they were trying to increase their rent 75%, $1,500 increase.
Wow.
Like where do you even get off doing that? And it was perfectly legal until we got this resolution, until we got the Fair Rent Commission back and running.
That is fucked up.
That's crazy.
It is. Like, they just go too far, and then you're like, okay, I literally can't take it anymore. So now if they would just, like, do it old schooly style, like, a little bit, lot, but not, like, overly a lot,
Yeah.
I have really good adjectives today, don't I? Overly a lot and a little a lot.
I can follow you just fine. So awesome. You're doing great. All right, our last question. And we asked this of all guests. So whoever answers second is gonna have an advantage. So I'm gonna let you two fight this out. I'll ask the question, and then you can figure out who's gonna answer first. What have you experienced that you can't explain? All right, so this could be supernatural. It could be, something not supernatural.
There's only two options: supernatural or non-supernatural.
Well, that is a binary that I'm creating here. So
it could be anything.
It could be anything that you have difficulty explaining. What have you explained? It could be the cruelty of landlords. It could be you saw a ghost once. It could be.
Well,
go ahead.
I never saw a ghost. But I feel like if ghosts existed, that there would be a picture of a bunch of them. So I don't know. Well, mine is kind of like when I was looking for my ancestor, and like I worked 2 blocks north of where he lived in New York City, and then like the last place I found the final corroborating evidence in the 1870 census. The only place I could get it was at the archives or whatever, U.S. Archives. It was across the fucking street from where I live.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I happen to know.
It was like,
I happen to know this story, and it's fascinating. Yeah. You're related to a historical civil rights leader. Is that right?
Abolitionist.
Abolitionist, yeah.
Black abolitionist, and and how I found him was weird too. It's like I can't explain it. It's like I'm not like religious. I'm sort of agnostic. I don't know, but who knows. But like the way I found him was I took a class at Hunter College called Blacks in New York City, and it was the first year the class was given. And I did my report on an orphanage in New York City for Black children. Mm-hmm. And this guy was the doctor. And then I happened to mention him in like one paragraph or something. And then like 4 or 5 years later, I'm looking at my grandmother's Bible, like the big Irish kind of Bible thing. Yeah. And there's this guy's name. And I'm like, that sounds pretty familiar. So I go look him up when I get home on whatever we had in 2000, whatever. And it was this guy, James McKean Smith, who was the guy who was the doctor at the orphanage, who I ended up being related to, which is insane.
Yeah.
So it's like it's so obscure. It's crazy. So for me, like that, I cannot explain how any of that happened because it was all like way too many coincidences.
Yeah.
So.
Weird quantum entanglements there. I can't even.
Like I feel like he did something, or somebody did something, or like there's something like we're connected somehow. I don't know.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. What about you, Paul?
I'd say the one thing I really can't explain is how I got to this point. And I say that because I feel like most of my life led here. I was raised, like my uncles were union organizers, like old school union organizers whose cars would blow up every once in a while.
Oh my God.
I was raised with, around politics. I actually went to NYU for politics, even though I'm a mechanic. I was pretty sure that was a waste up until now. Yeah,
Coming useful
all the
somehow.
Yes, I was like, I'm never using this. And, just like it literally seems like everything converged. Meeting Greta, like Greta and I have known each other for 40 years now. And we've been friends for that long and like bumped paths like many times, never gave each other a second look until about 10 years ago. And we've been off and running in so many ways that it has to be like some kind of like divine intervention almost.
It's
I
crazy.
think we're like distant cousins or something.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Paul. I'm glad you found your way to this place because, as I said before, I think the work you're doing here, you and Greta, is important work. So thanks for doing it.
Thanks.
All right, we've reached the end, believe it or not. And like I said, I told you I wanted to go 45 minutes, and here we are at an hour and 15 minutes. So,
Man.
Oh dear.
that's a sign of a couple of great guests. So,
Well, thanks.
I'm going to say it again, listeners. You've been hearing Greta Blau and Paul Boudreau talk to us about their work with the Connecticut Tenants Union and their union, the Serramonte Tenants Union. Okay. I'm going to post the links to the Connecticut Tenants Union in the show notes. Go check that out. And if you're in Connecticut and you're interested in joining this movement or somehow helping out, connect. Okay. Again, Greta, Paul, thank you so much. Really,
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Really enjoy talking with you. Listeners, there's a few things I'm going to ask you to do, okay? Go check out our website, softservepodcast.com, okay?
Engage with us on social media.
Yeah.
Do all the things.
Yeah, all that stuff. And we've got now somewhere north of 215 episodes, okay? There's a lot of shit you can listen to, right? So if you're hearing this and you want to appear as a guest, reach out to us. We have a form on our website. You can fill that out and be in touch with us there. Anything else?
We have social media. You can engage with us. Did I say that already?
Yeah, you said it.
Oh.
But it doesn't hurt to say it again.
Bears repeating.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're just going to go around and say goodbye now. That's what we do here at the end of the podcast. We say it whatever way we like to say goodbye. I'm going to start with you, Greta. Go ahead.
Ciao.
All right. Paul?
Consensus.
Goodbye, everyone.
All right. I like it. Stomping Jen.
Adios.
I love that you're sticking with adios.
You want me to change it?
No.
Right.
You're really committing to it, and I am commending you for that. So,
right.
Okay. You know what I'm going to say, people. Bye now. Hey, oh, there we go.
This world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate. Those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibility. That all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, and that the sources, scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made disappear from the earth. And that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding force of mutual respect and love. I shall never cease to do what little I can to help the world advance along that road.